Hi, it's Jan Beta, and today I'm going to take a look at two upgrades for my Amiga 600, one of which is a one-chip Kickstart Switcher that I'm going to attempt to build, and the other one is a boot selector, so you can boot from an external drive. So the venerable Amiga 600 that I learned to love in recent months and years. If you've seen an Amiga 600 on this channel, this is the one. I only own this one. Got a Furia accelerator card in there. It's got an RGB to HDMI in there. And it has a working internal disk drive. Again, it has a little memory expansion, so we have 2 megabytes of chip RAM. It's a very versatile machine for its small form factor, but the small form factor also comes with some downsides. Especially there is very little room for a Kickstart Switcher or any other upgrades. I have a lot of upgrades in here, but there's very little room for other upgrades in here. When I got this, it came with a Kickstart Switcher that had 2 chips on a little circuit board, but that one doesn't fit in here anymore because of all the upgrades I put in here. And there's very little room. The Kickstart chip, I think, is located around here, and there's very little space for a taller construction there, and also there's very little room for a larger size PCB or something like that. So I went to the internet and looked up solutions for that. And actually you can just use a larger EPROM and bank switch that for 2 different Kickstart versions. I also wanted to do this because this already has a hole in the side of the case here for a switch, physical switch, that I'm just going to use because otherwise there would be an unused hole in the casing. And I don't like that very much. And of course we're going to have to open this up again so I can show you what the trouble is. So when you open this up, you want to be super careful because the cable for the keyboard is super short, as we've seen in previous videos. And there's our problem. It's very crowded in here. So this is our Kickstart, currently an EPROM that has Kickstart 3.2.3 on there, and this is a 27C400. And maybe you can see this on camera. This socket is actually a 42-pin socket, while the EPROM is a 40-pin EPROM. This was designed to take other form factors of EPROMs or ROMs as well, but it never quite manifested in the old days. But we can totally put a 27C800 EPROM in here, which is double the size internally of the 27C400. So we can put 2 500 kilobyte Kickstart ROMs in there and just switch an address line to high or low to switch between the 2 Kickstarts. So that should be relatively easy to do, and then we can just route a wire out to our little hole that's on this side here and have a Kickstart switcher, hopefully. The problem is that most EPROM programmers that you can get today are not suitable for burning even these 27C400 EPROMs, let alone 27C800 EPROMs. So we need an adapter for my old TL866, and then that should just be a matter of wiring up some stuff and bending some pins out of the way and inserting our new EPROM. And I decided to use Kickstart 1.3 and the one we have already in here, 3.2.3. I have licenses for both. I have the Amiga Forever from Croanto, which includes licenses for all the Kickstarts, and I also have old licenses for Kickstart 1.3. And I also have the Hyperion Kickstart 3.2 that I bought, which comes with the upgrade to 3.2.3. And you actually can put the new 3.2 in as many machines as you want. I'm not so sure about the 1.3 license. I think that's just for a single use machine for the emulator or for a machine. but I don't use emulators very much, so I think I'm going to be fine. And of course you can also find these Kickstart files in less legal ways if you look around the internet, but I won't recommend that because they are still in production and the rights to the original Kickstarts are with Cloanto at the moment, so give them some support if you can. They can use it and they are going to do everything they can to keep the Amiga alive, which is what we're all after, I think. So I'm not going to go into how to obtain these files and how to convert them to the binaries you can actually burn into an EPROM. Let me just say that you have to look up how to convert these appropriately. There are numerous tutorials in blogs and forums, and there's also videos on YouTube about how to do that. I have my files already prepared for this, just to keep this brief. So here's my two Kickstart files. Kickstart 1.3, there's only one real version of that, I believe, for all the systems, and then you need the appropriate version of 3.2.3, which is this one for the CD-TV, A500, A600, A2000, the Amigas that only have one Kickstart ROM slot or socket. And if you look at these in a hex editor, you should see text that is close to being legible, because it's not quite legible because this is byte swapped because of the nature, the different endianness in the Amiga and the PC world. So this is what you want if you want an EPROM to burn. And you don't want any headers here, just starting this right away. These are both 512K files, or thereabouts. 524.3 kilobytes is the size you need. I doubled the Kickstart 1.3 ROM in the file because that's only half the size. Yeah, so these are the files you need to make a Kickstart switcher like I want to have. I particularly chose 1.3 because it doesn't support the internal IDE hard disk, or in this case CF card, so it's only going to boot from floppy disk in this system. That's actually going to make it a bit more compatible to older games and such. So I have a lot of my original Amiga floppy disks still, and I want to use them. Now this Amiga of course has a 68020 processor in it with the Fourier card and some other upgrades. RAM configuration is different from an original A500. That's why some games won't work for various reasons, because most games are aimed at the A500, the standard one, with 512 kilobytes of chip RAM only. Let's get to the hardware side of things, the EPROM programmer. Let me take a couple of seconds to thank the sponsor for this video, PCBWay, my favorite manufacturer of prototype PCBs of all kinds, and also they can do CNC machining, 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication, you name it, basically everything the tinkerer needs. Their pricing is super reasonable, delivery is fast, and the quality is excellent. And they have a couple of contests going on where you can win some huge money prizes. One of them is designing a 3D mascot, which I find pretty nice actually. So if you are into 3D design, the contest is still running for a few days. You can enter the contest and win up to $500, I think. So check out the link in the video description for more information. Back to our Amiga projects. This is my Minipro TL866, the original version of that. And to be able to burn these larger EPROMs, we need an adapter, which is something like this. This is the one from Keir Fraser, who also makes the Amiga test kit and some other excellent stuff for Amigas. This fits in here like so. And we have to set this up for our 27C800 EPROMs that I have here. These, I don't know if these work. These are ST M27C800. I'm going to have to put this in here like so, I think. And we can probably blank check this with the Minipro software at this point. I don't even know if these are blank. These came from eBay. These are obviously used. But yeah, usually these are super reliable, so you can totally buy used EPROMs from eBay. And most of them, in my experience, just work. So let's start our Minipro software that I made a video about how to get this to run in Linux. We are going to set this to 27C4096. 4096. Yeah, we can probably use the AMD version of that. We're going to have to remove the check ID. I'm just going to blank check this. It's actually checking. Device is blank. Okay, so we are going to, this is now set to an EPROM that can take 500 kilobytes, so half a megabyte, 512 kilobytes. We should be able to program one of our Kickstart ROMs in the first portion of this. I'm going to set the VPP voltage to 12.5 because that's what you have to do for the AMD EPROMs. I'm not sure about the ST EPROMs, but it might just work. Okay, let's open one file. I'm going to go with this first, CDTV, and that's a normal binary. Yep. Let's see if we can program this. Program. Nope, programming stopped. Yeah, this is going to take a while to figure out. Probably I'm going to have to look at the datasheet for these EPROMs so I can figure out which one we have to use. Which settings. So I have the datasheet for the 27C800 from ST here. And the programming voltage indeed is 12.5 volts, so we definitely have to change that. So it should technically work, I think, using the other EPROM now, because we probably messed the other one up. Or we wrote something in the first bits. Yep, that's blank. Okay, let's see if we can program it with these settings. Nope. Yeah. I'm going to have to erase these EPROMs and try that again. And I still do have plans for this EPROM eraser. Yeah, this doesn't have a timer. As you can see, I made a video about why a while back. I'm just going to set my phone timer. 20 minutes should be enough. So next try, I'm not sure why this wouldn't work. I left everything on normal except for changing the VPP voltage to 12.5 volts as per the datasheet. The rest of it I just left as is. Removed the check ID. I did a blank check. Let's see if this programs. No. Why doesn't this work? Maybe I have some bad EPROMs here.
Many hours later.
Well, it literally is like 6 hours later or so, and I tried to burn the EPROM repeatedly and it didn't work. As it turns out, my adapter board here is broken in some way. So I actually soldered up another one and that worked fine. So the settings are basically the first thing I tried. Just leave everything on 27C4096, but change the voltage to 12.5 volts, the programming voltage. And then you program the first part of the EPROM, the first Kickstart ROM, and then you set the jumper, or in this case a little switch, for A18 to on, and then you program the second ROM, the Kickstart ROM, on the 27C800. And this one, I verified this like 10 times, I think, and I instantly put a sticker on the window there so it won't be erased. So this should contain my Kickstart ROMs now. It was kind of a journey. There are several different iterations of this adapter. And this is the one from Fraser, this is the one from Gaggi, a German fella. And yeah, basically they all do the same. They have some kind of switch for 27C322 EPROMs that you don't want to use for these. And then it has a bank switch for the bank you want to program. And all of these work in the setting for the 27C4096. And you have to sometimes adjust the programming voltage and other things according to the data sheets of the EPROM you actually want to program. And the 27C4096 is a 512 kilobytes EPROM, so you can only program 512 kilobytes chunks, and if you have a larger file that you want to program on a larger EPROM, you have to divide that up and switch the banks you want to program and program each bank individually. That's about all that's to it. Yeah, and usually these work pretty reliably, unless they are broken. I guess the little transistor is broken or something, not much else that can go wrong on this board, really. Or it's just my socket not making good contact. I might look into this some more when I have the time. For now, this worked. So let's do the modifications to this EPROM that we need to make it switchable between the two banks. Basically, it's the same. We're just switching address line 18 on the EPROM to ground or to 5 volts, so high or low, and that switches the bank the Amiga is going to see. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm basically using this build here. We need A18, which is pin 1 on the chip. We need ground and 5 volts VCC, which is the regular supply voltage for the chip. There's another one of these that's a bit more elegant and uses a resistor. I think this is going to work fine. We don't need a pull up or a pull down because we're just wiring this straight up to ground or 5 volts. Should be nothing to worry about. Let's try that. We're just going with this, and I'm going to link this in the video description as well. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to show you in real life, and you can look it up on the website in case you need to. So we're going to bend pin 1 and pin 42 out of the way. I think pin 42 is not connected to anything anyway, but I think we don't even have to bend it out of the way. I'm just going to leave it in place for now. And bend pin 1, which is our address line, up, so it doesn't touch the socket. I'm going to be quite careful to hopefully not damage it. Okay, we should be able to solder to this, and that's where pin 1 on our switch goes. We need a switch, of course. Found a nice small one in my parts bin that should fit the bill. 3 contacts, so the center contact is switched between the 2 outer contacts, which are going to be ground and 5 volts. High and low, TLL levels, logic levels. And of course we're going to need some wire. And I'm going to use some heat shrink tubing over this so it doesn't contact anything. Possibly going to insulate this as well. So something like this. I'm a bit tired. It is pretty late in the evening. Probably I should continue this tomorrow, but I'm quite eager to figure out whether my EPROM burning endeavors have worked out. I need a bit of a win today because I thought everything was going south when the EPROM didn't program. Just going to solder to the switch first. I think the white wire is going to be the center wire. So we have our wires connected to the switch. I'm indeed going to put some heat shrink tubing over that. Could of course have done this beforehand. Just so if our switch rips out of its hole in the casing, it doesn't short out anything in our valuable Amiga. Heat shrink the heat shrink. I think I can actually put this in the case now and screw it down. and then wire up the EPROM. For those of you who hate damaging these old computer cases, I didn't drill this hole, it was already in here. I'm just going to curl these up a bit, just so that they stay together a bit. Need really short connections here. So I'm just removing very little of the insulation. And I'm just going to tin these to make it easier to solder to the EPROM pins, which is going to be not so easy anyway. The white one goes to pin 1. Oh, and we want some heat shrink tubing over that, of course. Yeah, that's pretty nifty. I'm just going to put our heat shrink tubing over that. Maybe we are not going to shrink it down just yet. Pin 3 is pin 31. 31. And this one is easy, because that's pin 22. That's the first one here. And then that should be that. Okay. So these are the connections. Pin 1, which is our address line 18 that we want to switch, is connected to the center pin on the little switch, and these are pin 31 and 22, voltage supply and ground. I didn't bend up pin 42 because it says it's not connected, so it probably doesn't matter if anything goes in there. If it does matter, we're going to bend it up. But I'm going to try without it. Because the less bending we have to do, the more likely it is we can reuse this EPROM. And of course, we want this in the same orientation as the old one. This is a 42-pin EPROM actually, so it fits into all the legs on the socket here, or all the holes in the socket, all the contacts, unlike the 40-pin 27C 400. Okay. Oh, doesn't look too bad actually. So let's see if this actually works. I'm going to connect the Amiga back up and try to switch between the two Kickstart ROMs that we burned on here. Hopefully it all works. So obviously I have no idea if this is going to work, but we're going to figure out shortly. Turning on the Amiga. Oh, and I forgot to hook up the LEDs. But it's doing something. It's probably booting from hard disk or CF card in this case. Maybe. We definitely have the drive ticking and things like that. Yay! So this is our 3.2.3. Copyright 2025. Okay, switching off. You only want to switch the Kickstart ROMs when this machine is turned off. And now it should just boot up to the Kickstart 1.3 screen if everything worked according to plan. Come on, you can do it. Way! This was exactly what I wanted. It just took way longer than I wanted it to take. Okay. Dual Kickstart ROM with one chip, which was a pain in the behind to get programmed, but that was kind of my fault. Pretty straightforward if you want to do something like this in your Amiga 600. If you don't have room for a proper Kickstart switcher, this is the way to do it. Whew, nice. Okay, so we don't have to bend up pin 42, it's just not connected, it seems. I think that's it for today. It's nearly bedtime, but I made it work. Yay! Always good to not give up and kind of try to think rationally, which isn't easy if you're frustrated, which I was quite a bit. I hope I was able to explain how this works without actually showing burning the EPROM, but I didn't film it and I don't want to risk burning the other EPROM and messing that up. Yeah, I'm a bit tired, as you can probably tell from my lack of words. See you tomorrow. In a second for you. Good night of sleep for me.
The next day.
So, another day, another cup of tea. And before I forget, shout out to Tim for donating the circuit board and most of the parts that are on this new EPROM adapter. And also quite a lot of other useful bits and pieces. Can't thank you enough. Thanks, Tim. Yay! On to the next bit. As I've demonstrated, I can now boot my old Turrican disk and many other Amiga disks that I still have, thankfully. But what if you want to use one of these? A Gotek drive emulator. If I want to boot from this actually needs to be DF0, defined as the internal drive for most games, regardless of the Kickstart version you have, because most games that were made for the Amiga are hard-coded to use the internal drive or DF0, the first drive. So we could just hook this up internally, but that would lose the original disk drive that I have in here, and I really want that in there. So there are ways to select the disk drive that you want to be DF0. And for the other Amigas that don't have surface mount chips, it's actually just a matter of sticking a little adapter board into one of the CIA sockets and switching a couple of wires around. And then you have hardware-based boot selection, but it's not so easy on the surface mount Amigas, the Amiga 1200 and 600. There are solutions for that problem, of course, because the Amiga community is so active in developing stuff. One of the solutions is from Gotek.nl. This got sent to me by Eddie from the Netherlands, and I'm going to put a link to this in the video description in case you want to order one of these. This is a pretty neat solution that just plugs into the internal disk drive and comes with an adapter that plugs into the external disk drive connector, and you can hook up a Gotek right to it. You don't even need any more adapters. It's just a Gotek adapter and a boot selector in one, basically. So that's pretty neat. Let's try it out. And this also comes with a nice instruction sheet, both in Dutch and in English. And I don't really speak Dutch. I understand parts of it, but not really, so I'm pretty grateful for having the English walkthrough here. Basically, there's two boards in here and a cable. And we have to connect one of these little boards to the disk drive internally, to the original disk drive, and the other one goes into the external disk drive port, and then the Gotek hooks up to that. Let's do that. And this works for other Amigas as well, because the disk drives are pretty much handled the same, so you don't need an Amiga with SMD components. So this should plug into the disk drive. And then we plug the disk drive cable into this here. There's a header on here. So this part just plugs into our disk drive where the original cable sits. And of course you want to make sure that the orientation is correct. So this is the orientation, I believe. And we need to route some wires outside of the Amiga. This is also plugged into this board. This is orientation of this wire here. And we can hook up our Gotek to this, and we also have power for the Gotek. So let's see if that works. I'm not going to route this wire at this point. I think I'm just going to try if this actually works without doing anything else. And of course you have to plug in the little headers the correct way around. This is a modified 25-pin DB25, but the disk drive connector on the Amigas is a DB23. But you can easily mod these connectors to work. So pin 1 is the red wire. We need to connect this to pin 1 on this here. And we need to connect this here, like so. Okay, now we should have an external Gotek, and there's a little switch on the little external adapter here that I'm going to show you in a minute. Let's see what this does. And there's a tiny little switch in here that I can switch to the other disk drive. Let's boot our Amiga test kit from the external drive. Or in this case, a Gotek. And there we are. Works without any issues. Booted from my Gotek. It's an older version, I think. I think I have a newer one on disk. This is 2021, probably the first one I downloaded. Yeah, but you get the point. You can use an external Gotek on an Amiga 600, which is pretty nifty. The link is going to be in the video description, of course. Thanks, Eddie, for donating this and letting me show this on the channel. Eddie also offers other interesting adapters, other boot selectors, external Gotek adapters, things like that. Check out his shop, Gotek.nl. Thank you so much for your time. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope it was informative, maybe even a bit entertaining. Special thanks, as always, to everybody who supports me on Patreon or on Ko-fi or on the YouTube channel memberships page or elsewhere. The links are in the video description and on my website. Thank you so much for your support. Without you, these things would not be possible. I'm Jan Beta. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye! This time I connected a joystick so I can play a bit of Turrican.